Let me ask you something. When's the last time you pulled into a truck stop at 2 in the morning, tired as hell, grabbed a hot cup of coffee, and sat down at a counter where the waitress already knew your name? Back then, it wasn't just about filling your stomach. It was about feeling at home on the road. Those diners had soul. The smell of bacon on the grill, truckers swapping stories in the corner, jukebox playing Merle Haggard in the back. Most of those places are gone now, just memories in the rearview mirror. But a few of those legends are still standing, still serving, still keeping the spirit alive. Today, we're counting down 10 legendary truck stop diners still alive after all these years. Number 10. Keystone Truck Stop Cafe, Loretto, Pennsylvania. If you ever rolled down Old Route 22 through the Pennsylvania mountains, chances are you pulled into Keystone. No flashing neon, no chain store polish. Just a simple diner where the coffee never stopped flowing and the waitress knew you by name. Truckers loved it because it felt like home on the road. Big breakfasts with eggs, bacon, and biscuits and gravy. Thick-cut fries stacked high on the plate. And dinners that tasted more like your mom's kitchen than a truck stop. You'd walk in tired, smell that coffee, hear the chatter of drivers swapping stories, and suddenly the road didn't feel so long anymore. Keystone was a true East Coast trucker's refuge, tucked in the Appalachians, rugged, warm, and honest. Even today, it carries that same spirit. No gimmicks, no shortcuts, just a place where a driver can sit down, fill up, and remember the golden age of trucking. Number 9. Big Texan Steak Ranch, Amarillo, Texas. Every trucker who ever thundered down I-40 through Amarillo remembers the neon cowboy grinning over the highway. The Big Texan wasn't just a meal stop, it was a dare. The famous 72-ounce steak challenge lured in drivers from all across the country, a legend that spread from CB radios to truck stop counters like wildfire. But it wasn't just about the steak, it was the atmosphere. Long wooden tables packed with drivers and locals, waitresses hustling plates of ribs and chicken fried steak, the sound of laughter echoing under the neon glow. For truckers on the endless stretch of I-40, the Big Texan was more than food. It was a break from the grind, a place to share stories, test your appetite, and maybe even leave your name on the wall of fame. To this day, it still stands tall in Amarillo, and for any old-school driver who passed through, just the thought of that giant neon cowboy brings back the smell of sizzling beef and the thrill of a challenge only the toughest truckers would dare to take. Number 8. South of the border, Hamer, South Carolina. If you ever ran I-95 back in the day, you couldn't miss it. For hundreds of miles, billboards teased you with goofy jokes and Pedro's smiling face. By the time you hit the South Carolina border, those neon lights were impossible to ignore. And that was the magic of south of the border. Truckers didn't just stop here for gas or a quick bite. They stopped because it felt like stepping into another world. A roadside carnival lit up against the dark highway. Inside, the food was simple diner fare. Burgers, fries, coffee strong enough to keep you rolling through the night. But it was the atmosphere that made it unforgettable. Bright neon signs, souvenir shops, and the sound of families and drivers all mixing together made it a legend of the open road. For long-haul truckers, it was a welcome break on one of America's busiest routes. You pulled in tired, maybe grabbed a plate of eggs or a midnight burger, and left with a story. Even now, south of the border is still standing. Its neon glowing like a time capsule of America's golden highway days. Number 7. Our Place, Morris, Illinois. Right off I-80 in Morris, Illinois, sat a place every Midwest trucker knew by heart. Our Place. It wasn't fancy, it wasn't flashy, but it had something far more important: comfort. The smell would hit you before you even sat down. Fresh baked bread, giant cinnamon rolls bigger than a hubcap, pork chops sizzling on the grill. Truckers loved Our Place because it felt like family. You'd roll in after a long haul, park your rig with a dozen others out front, and step into a diner where the waitresses called you Hon. The coffee never ran dry, and the food tasted like home. Drivers still talk about those cinnamon rolls, so big you almost needed a knife and fork, and the homemade pies that made you linger a little longer than you planned. And in the booths, you'd always find stories being swapped, miles driven, breakdowns survived, and maybe a little bragging about the loads hauled. For years, our place was more than a pit stop. It was a Midwest tradition. Even if you only pass through once, chances are the memory of that meal and that welcome stayed with you for the rest of the ride. Number 6. Beto Junction, Coffee County, Kansas. Out on the wide open plains of Kansas, there was a crossroads every trucker knew, Beto Junction. The name itself was a map. It sat halfway between Burlington, Emporia, Topeka, and Ottawa. For decades, it was the perfect meeting point on a long, empty stretch of highway. Truckers loved it because it felt like a gathering place. You could pull in and see rigs from all corners of the country lined up outside, drivers piling inside for hot coffee, fried chicken, and homemade pie. The food was simple, hearty, and cheap. The kind of stick-to-your-ribs cooking that kept you awake on those long Midwest runs. What really made Beto Junction special, though, was the energy. It wasn't just a stop, it was a hub. Drivers traded stories at the counter, swapped routes and weather reports, and shared a laugh before hitting the road again. For many, it was the halfway mark on a grueling haul, a place to rest, reset, and feel human again. Even today, when you say Beto Junction, old-school truckers smile. It wasn't about flashy neon or gimmicks. It was about people, good food, and the open road that stretched out in every direction. Number 5. Beacon Drive-In, Spartanburg, South Carolina. Since 1946, the Beacon Drive-In has been a southern landmark for anyone behind the wheel, especially truckers running the Carolinas. You didn't need a GPS to find it. You just followed the line of cars and rigs pulling in for burgers, BBQ, and gallons of sweet tea. The Beacon was famous for its sheer energy. The moment you walked in, you were hit with the smell of chili cheeseburgers on the grill and fries frying up hot. And then there was the legendary voice of J.C. Strobel, the order caller, shouting your meal across the room like it was a gospel sermon. For truckers who spent hours in the quiet cab of a rig, that noise, that life, felt like stepping right into the heart of the South. It wasn't just about the food, though the plates were stacked so high you barely saw the tray. It was about the atmosphere, drivers laughing over sweet tea, locals mixing with long haulers, and a sense that you were part of something bigger than just another stop. Even today, the Beacon still stands, still shouting out orders, still feeding hungry travelers. For truckers, it remains a time capsule of an era when the road was hard, but the pit stops made it all worthwhile. Number 4. Dysart's Restaurant and Truck Stop, Herman, Maine. If you ever hauled freight through New England, chances are you pulled into Dysart's off I-95 in Herman, Maine. Since 1967, this family-owned spot has been more than just a truck stop. It's been a lifeline for drivers running the cold, lonely roads of the Northeast. The first thing truckers remember is the portions. Dysart's plates weren't shy. Stacks of blueberry pancakes spilling over the edge, thick-cut bacon, fried haddock sandwiches, and steaming bowls of chowder. And the coffee? Strong enough to push you through another 100 miles of icy highway. But what really set Dysart's apart was its warmth. For long-haul truckers far from home, the place felt like family. The waitresses didn't just take your order. They remembered your face, your rig, maybe even your last story from the road. In the middle of a Maine winter, that kind of welcome meant everything. Even now, Dysart's hasn't lost its soul. It still smells of butter and coffee, still has that wood-paneled diner charm, and still carries the spirit of a time when truck stops weren't chains. They were community. For countless truckers, Dysart's is proof that some traditions are just too good to fade. Number 3. Little America, Wyoming, and Arizona. For truckers grinding across the endless stretches of the West, Little America was more than a pit stop. It was an oasis. Sitting out on I-80 in Wyoming, surrounded by nothing but wide-open plains and wind that could rattle your rig, this place felt like heaven after hours on the road. The first thing drivers remember? Ice cream cones for a dime. After a long, dusty haul, that little scoop of vanilla tasted like a reward for surviving the highway. Inside, the diner side served up hearty Western meals. Chicken fried steak, mashed potatoes, thick burgers. Food that filled you up and stuck with you. And unlike most roadside joints, Little America had something most truckers never expected: real beds. For drivers who'd been sleeping in the cab, a clean room and a hot shower made you feel human again. It wasn't just food and rest though, it was the feeling. Walking in, you saw travelers, families, and truckers all mingling together. It had a strange kind of magic, a reminder that the road could still surprise you with kindness. Even today, Little America still stands as a symbol of old-school hospitality, a reminder of a time when truck stops weren't just businesses, they were beacons of relief in the middle of nowhere. Number 2. Petro truck stops, iron skillet restaurants nationwide. Before the highways were lined with Pilot and Loves, there was Petro, and every trucker knew it by heart. What made Petro special wasn't just the fuel pumps or the parking lot, it was what sat inside, the Iron Skillet restaurant. For a weary driver, walking into an iron skillet was like walking into your grandma's kitchen. The buffet tables were stacked high: fried chicken, mashed potatoes, meatloaf, cornbread, steaming soups. And if you didn't want the buffet, the menu had all the classics: steaks grilled just right, burgers dripping with grease, and breakfasts that could keep you rolling clear across the state. But what truckers loved most was the sit-down feeling. You weren't rushed, you weren't handed food in a paper bag. You got a real plate, a real fork, and a waitress who called you Han while topping off your coffee. After hundreds of miles in the cab, that little taste of normal life was priceless. For decades, Petro was the beating heart of America's highways. And for many old-school drivers, the words iron skillet still bring back the smell of bacon, the clatter of silverware, and the comfort of knowing you weren't just fueling your truck, you were fueling your soul. Number 1. Iowa 80, Walcott, Iowa. If there's one stop every trucker remembers, it's Iowa 80, the world's largest truck stop. Sitting on I-80 in Walcott, Iowa, this place has been a beacon on the highway since 1964. For nearly 60 years, it's been more than just a stop. It's been the ultimate trucker's home away from home. Walking inside for the first time felt like stepping into a city built just for drivers. Multiple diners and food counters dished out everything from hot breakfasts to hearty steaks. The chrome, the neon, the smell of burgers on the grill. It was pure Americana. And then there was the Truckers Museum, where rigs from the old days sat polished, reminding every driver of the heritage they were part of. Truckers loved Iowa 80 because it had everything: fuel, food, showers, a barbershop, even a movie theater. You could park your rig, walk in exhausted, and come out feeling alive again. For some, it was just another stop. But for many, it was the highlight of the road, a place where you felt the heartbeat of America's trucking world. Even today, Iowa 80 stands tall, neon blazing against the Iowa sky, carrying the spirit of trucking's golden age into the modern world. For veteran drivers, it isn't just a truck stop, it's a symbol. A reminder of all those miles, all those nights, and all those memories that made life on the open road unforgettable. So here's the question: which one of these stops was your home away from home? Which diner still lives in your memory every time you climb behind the wheel? Share it in the comments, because these stories aren't just about food, they're about family, the open road, and a way of life that built America mile by mile.